I welcome the participants in this session on images of tribal women in India. The popular image and perception of the tribal woman is that of being better off than their non-tribal counterpart. There is no child marriage, no stigma on widowhood. She enjoys the right to decide about her marriage. Instead of a dowry, there is a bride price, and so all these indicate a very high social status of the tribal woman. However, there are many facts which indicate a low status of the tribal woman. She does not have any property right except in a matrilineal society, which is a small proportion of the tribal population. She is paid less wage than her male counterpart for the same amount of work that she performs. Several taboos and discriminations are also there against tribal women, which exist in certain tribal groups and implying impurity and low status of women. Oraon woman, for instance, is prevented from touching a plough. The Todas of Nilgiri Hills do not touch a menstruating woman for fear of destruction of harvest. In certain tribes, only the males can participate in ancestral worship, and the Toda and Kota women in southern India cannot cross the threshold of a temple. Now, the Santhal women cannot attempt or attend communal worship. So, these are some of the taboos which I will be deliberating much in details later on, that what is the status of women in this tribal community. Now, just to give you a glimpse of health, education and employment of the tribal women, the status of, as you know, is any social group is determined importantly by its level of health, nutrition, literacy, education and employment. The tribal women constitute, as in any other social group, about half of the total population. However, the importance of women in the tribal society is more important than in any other social groups in India, because of the fact that tribal women, more women than in any other social group, work harder, and the family income and management depends majorly on her. The power to take decision is extremely important from the viewpoint of empowerment of women, because it is often seen that their voice is not properly listened. The decision making power of women should not be ignored, and the real development cannot take place without active participation of women. Women in tribal society play a vital role in their social, cultural, economic and religious ways of life, and are considered as an economic asset in their society. They constitute about half of the total population, but in tribal society, women are more important than any other social group because they work harder and the family economy and management depends on them. But they are still lagging far behind in different walks of life like education, employment, good health condition and economic development of these women. If we see the health status of tribal women, higher infant mortality rate in the tribals compared to national average is found. There is low nutritional status of the tribals, especially of the women. There is a lower life expectancy in the tribals than the national average, and there is a higher incidence of sickle cell diseases, that is, and glucose to various enzymes deficiencies in some of the tribal groups, and higher fertility rate in the tribal women compared to the national average. Educational status of tribal women. If we see the educational status of the tribal women, the low educational status of tribal women is reflected in their lower literacy rate, lower enrollment rate and higher dropout rates in the school. The literacy rate of the tribals is lower than compared to general, as even when we compare it to the scheduled caste population. The literacy rate of rural tribal female is the lowest of all groups. Employment status of the tribal women. A very large majority of the tribals, almost 90%, are engaged in agriculture. Their own economic activities bring food gathering, including hunting and fishing, pastoral farming, handicrafts, trades and commerce and industrial labor. Rarely are they engaged in only one occupation. And employment status of the tribal women may be considered in the terms of their own work participation in agriculture, forest, non-agricultural activities and impact of various development programs on them. There has been various government schemes for the upliftment of the tribal women, and there has been strengthening education among the scheduled tribes girls in low literacy districts. For instance, it is a gender scheme of the Ministry of the Tribal Affairs. The scheme aims to bridge the gap rate in the literacy level amongst the general female population and the tribal women through facilitating 100% enrollment of tribal girls in the identified districts or blocks, and more particularly in the Naxal affected areas and in areas inhabited by primitive tribes, that is PVTGs, and in reducing dropouts at the elementary level by creating the required ambience for education. There is also a scheme for girls hostels for scheduled tribes, and the scheme of girls hostel, which started in the third plan, is a very useful instrument of spreading education among scheduled tribe girls, whose literacy still stands at 34.76% as per 2001 census, as against the general female literacy of 54.828%. Second, which I will talk about, is Adivasi Mahila Sashaktikaran Yojana, which is a national scheduled tribes financial and development corporation under Ministry of Tribal Affairs, which provides loans to scheduled tribe women for income generation activities at concessional rate at 4% per annum. Then various schemes that are administered by Ministry of Women and Child Development are also intended to benefit the women, including the scheduled tribes, like Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao scheme, One Stop Center scheme, Women Helpline scheme, Ujjwala Yojana, then Working Women Hostels, Rajiv Gandhi National Crush scheme for children of working women. So various rural development programs like MG Narega and Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana, all these are intended to empower the rural areas, especially and also including the tribal women. As I said, these are some of the glimpses which we will be discussing much in details, but women are an integral structure of gender system that encompasses almost every aspect of society, and gender is an extremely important element of social structure in tribal societies also. Gender relation is complex and varied, and there is a need to relook and redefine social realities of women's world through gender perspective. Compared to the vastness of the tribal women and tribal world in India, very little has been done on women's studies. Through gender perspective, a well integrated and well planned study program can be generated for the value addition and relevant data base, which can be used for practical benefits of the tribal women in the country. So I thank all my participants for listening to that, and we will be taking each and every aspects and more on tribal women in India.